Hi, friends. Pastor Preston is my name. So excited to come your way today. So today I want to talk to you about change. Okay, it's very important that we try not to force people to change. Listen to me and listen very well. Right, it will either frustrate you, right, because they are feeling frustrated. Most importantly, when they either don't understand that they need change, they lack capacity to enforce that change, or they are too lazy, to go through the discipline of change. Okay, so be careful how you try to force people to have change. I think one of the best things you need to do is to accept people the way they are if you really want peace, right, as against trying to force them to change. But the question will be, right, but we know that they have a lot of characters that need to change, or many things that they need to change out of a good, good heart. What do we do about that, right? The best way usually is demonstrate the right things around them, and then if they see a need for it, then they will, from what you have done, right, begin to ask you questions so they can also implement change themselves. That's something you need to learn in your life. Okay, glory to God. Even Jesus Christ, when he came, what did he do? First, he became an example for us. And the same thing Paul told Timothy in the book of Timothy. He says, be thou an example to the believers. So in other words, when we become an example, it can be, attractive for them to now consider to say, okay, well, I want to, and then you now begin to introduce change, right? That's something you need to do. Change can be very frustrating, very, very frustrating. And even people who tell you with their mouth and say, I want to change, help me to change, they have found it very hard to change because of the process of changing, right? It took a lot for you to become what you became. It will also not change overnight. It will also take a lot to have that to change, right? So that means you must be willing to go through pain and be willing to be disciplined, right? And stay consistently with the new training or practicing for you to really begin to experience change. Glory to God. Okay. Like they'll say there are two things that really does not change. And then they say tax, right, or debt. They say those two things does not change. They definitely will happen. But I want to add to it and say change is another thing that you always will find. Okay, you find tax, you find debt, you also find change. Okay, change is inevitable. Change is something that just happens, right? And in that change that happens, a lot of people find it hard to, adapt, okay, or want to find themselves to change to fit the position of the change that they have found. And there are a couple of few reasons why I think people don't like to change. Number one, laziness to change. Okay. Yeah. Laziness. When people feel too lazy to want to change, it's a problem. Number two, right? The reason why people don't want to change is because of the habit. Okay. Right. They see their previous habit, right, as their autopilot, and then they find it hard to form new habits. Okay, because you really don't change until you make new habits, right? And people find it hard to make new habits, and new habits are not made overnight. There's something that you start and then you go through a process, right, consistently before it's formed, right? That you did right once does not make it a new habit, right? That's why we say success is not an event. When success becomes an event, you are not successful, right? It is when success becomes a character. That's when you're successful, right? And when you try to do something to get a result, you are not resultful. It is when you become something to get a result. So work at becoming as against just working at getting. When you become, you naturally just get. But once you work to get, right, and then you relax, right, you be like that guy who went up 1 minute and came down the next minute. Another one is self-doubt. Self-doubt is a great problem for people to change because they doubt themselves. They don't believe they can be that new person. They just believe, oh, I'm just fit like that and all that stuff. So that begins to work against them. The next will be fear of the unknown. A lot of people are very comfortable with their space. They're trying to say, how can I cope there? Are you sure I can? Right? Why don't I just stay? After all, I'm not doing too badly here. So the fear of unknown makes people find it hard to change. Next will be lack of control. People always like to be in control. And then in the new place of change, it seems like you are under control or you are still learning to do some stuff. Like people say, you are still standing on one foot, right? That begins to become a big challenge for certain people. That's why they want to resist change, because they feel they are no longer in control. Next will be age. The interesting thing, a lot of people think that when you grow with age, you actually get better. That's not true. It is only wise people that get better with age. Okay, foolish people, right, harden in their previous with age, right? Like somebody will say, a fool will still get old and continue to be a fool, right? So when you begin to get older, you just, I've heard people say things like, I'm too old to change, Joe. I'm too old to start learning this thing. I'm too old to do that stuff. That is not true. Don't allow old age to become a barrier for you becoming something new for which you can be the best. Now, let me say this. It is true that you grow older, right? You get weaker. But it's important that you understand that while you grow older, if you continue to exercise physically and exercise your mind, you certainly will retain, compliance and be smart and strong. One of the mistakes that people make is once they get older, they've finished all their degrees and have all the certifications they want to have, they stop reading and all that. Then they find it hard to read. Then they begin to get clogged in their head. Then they begin to, get into that stage where it seems like they're too much stuffs in their head, right? Instead of them to declutter, instead of them to exercise their brain. People don't know that you can exercise your brain. You exercise your brain by reading a lot. Okay, you set it as a target, right? For any good reason. Just say every day I'm going to read like this. Once you exercise a lot on a daily basis, you begin to exercise your brain, and then you keep the brain strong to be able to take more stuff. Same as your food and your physical self, right? You take a long walk, you do exercise, then you realize that instead of you to be getting really weaker, you may not be weak. You might still have ability to do a lot of stuff. So don't allow age to become an hindrance towards your advancing, your getting better, right? And just wanting to become worse. The next will be our past. Okay, our experience will change in the past, right? Can greatly affect the way people change. Our experience that we went through in the past. I'm telling you the truth. Sometimes certain things just bring back memories to people, and they feel like, oh, it seemed like, something like that, deja vu or something like that, right? But the truth is, leave your past in the past and focus with the present. As a matter of fact, live like the past never existed, because your future is more important, and it's what you do today that will determine your future, because it was what you did before, right, that created today. So if you will be intentional with today, then you create a better future. That's very important that you understand. Okay, so let nobody, right, fool you with apology when they have not put themselves on the process of change. You will realize that eventually you would have wasted your time. It can be very frustrating investing energy, time in trying to change people, and then you find them just revert. It can be very frustrating. And I can tell you, because I've had that firsthand as a pastor who believe in people, who believe in change, who always want to teach people and expect that they get better, right? It can be very frustrating if you don't understand that it is not something that you think you can achieve. It is something that they will determine to say, I want to change, right? Be willing to submit themselves in humility to learn, and then go through the process of becoming. But you see, one of the things that you can do to everyone is to tolerate them, is to be patient with them, is to love them. Then place them where their deficiency will not be causing havoc. Place them where their deficiency will not be causing problem. That way, you will not find yourself suffering for their deficiency, or finding that their deficiency begins to become a problem for the holistic development, the organization, the business, or the ministry. So make sure that you are not sentimental in placing people, right, in positions where they lack capacity, because you are hoping that they're going to get better, right? As a matter of fact, that's even one of the mistakes a lot of people do when they say, well, I'm hoping that she's going to change, he's going to change, and then they marry them, and then trouble comes in the marriage. Then you end up to say, well, unreconcilable difference, and then we're going for a divorce, right? You cannot marry for the future, hoping for a better future. You marry who has ability for the future that you want to get into right now. That's something about change, right? So listen, like I said before, and I'm going to say again, right? You cannot force anyone to change. As a matter of fact, trying to force anyone to change is an abuse. And our King and Master, Jesus Christ, did not force anyone to change. As a matter of fact, he gave his life for us. He didn't force us to receive that salvation. He asked that people go and preach, and then if they are willing, they'll be saved. As a matter of fact, even in Revelation, he says, I come knocking at the door of your heart. If you will invite me to come in, then I'll come in and sup with you. Did you notice how gentle he is? He says, I'm knocking at the door of your heart, right? Not invading your heart or forcing to get in your heart. So never force people to change. If they cannot offer you, right, what you need, then find a replacement or don't choose them in the first instance. But never you try to force people to change, because everyone deserves to live and be happy, even if they choose to be stupid or live anyhow they like. And of course, if they say, we say, past person, are you trying to say people have the right to live the way they like and all that? We already have the government who regulates a couple of things that they can do. But as concerning you and them, what you deserve to offer them is love, and just tolerate them. So don't force nobody to change, but we hope, right, that you in wisdom begin to apply principles that will cause you to change. Because when you advance, right, you become of a better worth and towards, you naturally will earn more worth and will earn more profit to your life or for what you work in. I hope this blessed you a lot. Thank you for listening, and God bless you.